explain myself.
Welcome back, everyone, and happy 2025. We are so excited to bring you back another episode, another podcast here with Rock and Dea. And we are so excited to have our first ever multimedia artist and photographer on our show. And he's straight out of Albania. Well, he was until he came to America and started his own journey over here.
Yes.
His name is Brian, and you might have known him from his photography skills online on Dritje, which means, Brian, what does that mean for our non-Albanian audience?
Yeah, Dritje literally means light and shadows, just like the essence of photography.
Of photography.
Perfect.
We're
Yes.
so excited to have him on our show today and tell us a bit about his journey. So, Brian, welcome. I'll give you the floor for an introduction and tell us who you are.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. As I heard, I'm the first guest, I guess, for 2025. So that's a great honor. So hopefully we start this year with a bang, right?
With a bang.
With a good story. All right. So yeah, my name is Brian. Well, my name is Brian in Albanian, and I'm known as Dritje or Light and Shadows, as I said. And I'm a photographer of many genres. I guess I started as a street photography because all of this started as a hobby. Back in Albania, I was doing another job not related at all to photography. It was basically I was doing sales. So photography was always my passion since a kid. I guess I inherited this from my father. He also had a passion for photography, and for maybe younger audiences listening to this, it might not sound such a big deal, but back then, like I was born in 1990, and back then when my father was doing film photography, like just documenting his life, taking photos of his parents, grandparents, photography was not a commodity as it is today. So growing up having those photos from my father when he was younger was really a big impact, really did a big impact on me, because as I said, now a young kid, has his phone and photos are very accessible, but back then it was something different growing up in Albania. So that was always something that, like, it was on the back of my mind, like photography, freezing memories, having memories, and doing this as a hobby. I guess I started developing it more when after I finished high school. I started taking photos of friends, of family, of everyone who wanted to take a photo. And at first I started with a cell phone because I didn't have a camera.
Yeah.
After a while, I got my first camera was actually a film camera that my dad had. It was in great condition because luckily he really saves a lot of old stuff. Like he takes care of them. Can say the same thing about myself, unfortunately. But so I got my first camera. It was a film camera since I didn't have money to buy a digital camera. And so I had to really learn like how to do photography. Like, like a comparison I always do is like when you learn a car, like with stick or driving manual, and then you go to automatic, it's pretty easy, right? So I started with that, and I am self-taught. I never took a course in photography. My teachers were the internet and YouTube. So every time I had a question, I went there, and that's how I learned bit by bit. And then obviously by shooting and making mistakes, and learning how to correct that mistake. That's how I kind of advanced through the years. And after a while, after I university, I started my first job, saved some money, and then that's when I bought my first digital camera.
Look at
And
that.
from there, yeah, and from there I started taking more photos because, well, with the film camera, the idea is you have only 36 shots for anybody who remembers like analog cameras. So you have this film, you put it inside, and it's like a slider. So you press once, the film slides, and then you have 35 shots, and then 34, and so on. So I had to be really careful in choosing what I shot because that was it. And then you had to go to the lab, take the film, and they would process it, which would take like a week. And then after that, you could kind of see the photos you took. You
Right.
you didn't have a digital screen. You didn't know how your photos looked.
The quality or
So
anything of them. You just
nothing
trust
at
the
all.
process.
Exactly. So after that, I got my digital camera, and by that time, I was kind of well, I guess a lot of things started coming together into me going into street photography. So one thing was I am really passionate about history. Another thing is, as I said, like I love this freezing in time moments that photography offers. So that's like kind of freezes a bit of like a part of history, right? And when I was a kid, I saw photos of my grandfather, who at that present time he was all gray hair, but in the photo he was so young. He had black hair. You know, he didn't have as many wrinkles. He was thinner, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And then I saw him live, and I was like, oh wow, this is the
What
same person.
happened?
Yeah, what, mind you, I was like 8 years old. I wasn't
Right.
like a teenager doing this mind-blowing stuff, okay? And so that always was in the back of my mind, like, hey, I want to take photos to kind of freeze a moment in time.
Moment, a memory.
And as I was going through YouTube in my university days, I kind of delved, I kind of rastisa, like in street
By
photography.
chance.
Yeah, by chance. Like I saw a video of some guy, he was in New York, he was taking photos on the street, you know? And so that immediately resonated with me, because what is street photography is just, you know, of documenting life as it happens in your era, in the time you were there, you were living there. So those photos then they become, it's like wine, you know, the longer you let it sit, the better it tastes.
It becomes.
It becomes, yeah. So those photos, I saw street photographers. Then I started, you know, going into the research, like, okay, who are the best street photographers? I went into that. So I started looking into some old street photography, and street photography has been around since the 1940s. So you could see your city, like, well, unfortunately, we didn't have street photographers in Albania back then, but around Europe and in the USA, you know, you could see that place at that time, how the people
Right.
dressed, what the people were, how the people were feeling, how the buildings look, how the streets looked. You could see
History,
everything, you know?
capturing history through
Exactly.
lens.
Exactly. And you could also feel a part of the culture through those photos. So that's why I started, you know, I kind of said, okay, you know, I'm doing this for fun. I want to go into my spare time, go out on the street and shoot street photography here in Tirana, because, well, nobody was doing it. I guess there were some people who kind of maybe delved once or twice, but street photography, you know, if you want to really go at it, it's a hard genre of photography, and you really got to be passionate about it, because
Sure.
you got to, if it's raining, you got to go there and take the photos, because it's a different kind of setting. If it's very cold, if it's very hot, you know, you always got to be there, night, day. So I always went through all these different periods, and I guess I hit my peak during COVID area. After, you know, we were 3 months, I wasn't working, so during the day I went outside and I took as many photos as I could. And so that's kind of my journey, how I started and how I kind of developed my style, which was street photography. After that, yeah, go ahead.
Did you mention what your first camera was, by the way?
My first camera, it's a film camera, and it was Zenith 122. That's the name.
And what was your first professional camera?
And just a curiosity about that camera, if you looked in the back of it, it was all metal, and that camera said made in USSR.
Oh,
So
look at that.
it was made in the Soviet Union. Yeah.
Real classic.
My dad had bought it when he went back when he went to Russia in 1990s, after the 1990 after the communist regime fell, and he got it there. That's another story. So, but my first professional camera, it was a Sony, the first Sony Alpha 7. So now it's like Alpha 4, Alpha 5. That was the first. And by that time, it was old again. Like, it wasn't a new camera when I bought it. It was still like a budget camera. Probably, I think I bought it around, yeah, 600, well, $600, because now like in dollar, it's like one on one. So,
Yeah.
something like that.
So,
And yeah,
Brian,
so, mhm,
no, not to interrupt you, I just had a question about what you
yeah.
mentioned when you were younger and you saw
Mhm.
those photographs and you thought to yourself, wow, my grandpa does not look like how he looks in this picture
Yeah.
now. He's older, and that's a moment captured in time. I wanted to ask you, what is it that pushes you to now go up to people that are living their life on the street and ask them to take a picture? What is it that you're trying to capture? Is it something soulful? Is it a moment in time? Are you recording history? Can you tell us what your artistic process is behind that?
Yes. So I think it's all of those that you said combined. Going back, as I said, so like I love street photography. I guess I would like to call myself a very sociable person. So I like meeting new people. So if you put those all together, it makes sense for me just to go and socialize, and why not take photos in the moment
Mhm.
to capture a bit of history of that person, to sometimes even to lift their spirit up, because you don't know what somebody is going through, and if a
Yeah.
random person comes and asks to take a photo of you, some people find it as an appreciation. So like, hey, this guy, he came to me, to take a photo. He saw something in me. He wants to take this photo. So, and another thing is to socialize. You never know the people you meet. Some of them you might end up being friends with.
Friends or
As,
connection,
as,
correct?
as yes, exactly. As I did back in Albania, like two or three of those people I ended up being friends with. And so it's all of those combined, and it just makes me happy, going and taking photos. And it's all about testing my skill. I like to test my skill all the time. So with every different person, you kind of have to approach uniquely in a different kind of way. And I always like to ask them some questions first, like before I photograph, like, hey, how long have you been here? Are you from around? As long as I also test the waters.
That's the
You never
water.
know how comfortable somebody is, like, giving information. First of all, I am really I really appreciate them for taking their time to even not say, hey, go away, but even
Yeah.
for saying, okay, like entertaining me, because it's me that goes to them. It's not them coming to me. So I'm always grateful for them, to giving their time to me. So I always kind of I'm very respectful. If I see that they don't wanna, they don't wanna give too much info, I stop. But it's always about trying to capture not only a good portrait, but also like capturing them, their uniqueness.
They're
Like, if,
feeling.
yes, like for example, if when they smile they have a dimple here, I try and make them smile so I can capture that part of them. If for example they have a very how to say, it's a very
What
serious
what
but kind
attracts you?
of serious face, but that serious face is kind of them, I try to capture that, so it depends on all those things.
So you're from Tirana, and I think it's an honor
Yes.
for me to be interviewing someone who's from Tirana because I'm from Tirana myself, and my
Yay.
parents live in Tirana, and I grew up a big portion of my childhood there. And you're the first guest I think we have from Tirana, but also knowing
Okay.
the Tirana scene, it's not the most normal thing for people just to come up to you and start speaking, especially
Oh,
they don't know
definitely.
you. So what I liked about your presence online is that you were doing something that was slightly more socially provocative and new, and people
Yes.
they struggle because they like it because it's new and they know that it's done in other places of the world. Like, for example, Humans of New York or Humans of Mumbai, we've seen those stories told, but to see it done in Albania and to have that new air presented, how was it like for you when you first started going out in the streets and collecting these stories?
Oh man, well, when I first started, it was so I had already started doing street photography, but kind of passively. So I wouldn't approach people, So I kind of had that first layer, I guess you would say, of shyness removed. So I was on the streets, I was just taking photos of people doing their thing, passively, without kind of asking them to take a photo. So that kind of, when you do a very an activity that has your adrenaline pumping, and then you want more and you want to level it up and level it up, kind of the same thing. So I was like, okay, I have to go and ask some of these people, because all the time I found that I took a photo and I saw the subject and I was like, oh man, I wish that subject, I wish I could take more photos of them. But then if I started hanging around and taking photos of them without their knowing, I would just be a weirdo. That wouldn't be more street photography, like I couldn't stalk them around and take photos of them. So the right thing to do for me was to ask them. So that's how kind of I think there's a quote online. I think a street photographer said it very beautifully. He said he was asked kind of the same question back in the day when this wasn't normal. And he said the desire to take the photo is greater than the fear of rejection or of embarrassment or of whatever. So that was the same thing with me. That my desire was greater than the fear I had, or the kind of, because it was never done. So the first approaches were very unrefined, even by my part, but even like the reactions of the people. So I was like, my voice was very kind of low, like, hey, I take photos. Yeah, I can show you, like, and it was very unrefined. It took a while for me to get my point across. But and then people were like, a lot of people were saying no. Some that said yes were like, I guess, kind of not sure about that. But then that was even better, because when they saw the photos, they were very ecstatic. They really loved the photos. So that was like kind of the beginning of that.
Do you have a most memorable moment that you did with anybody in terms of a photo shoot, or is there one that stands out?
Well, I guess I have some memorable moments, which some are sad and some are joyful, I guess. Um, So a most memorable moment was when I took photos of this old man. He was walking in Tirana Center, um, and he had this bliss, like the white hat. He had a
Mhm.
big mustache like this,
Mhm.
and he was all dressed in classic Albanian
I know
clothes.
exactly what you're talking about. Wow.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and he had a very very kind of menacing posture. He was walking like, he knew his business. He was walking fast. He was going somewhere, and he was not smiling at all. He was very hard, like he was also old. I guess he was probably in his 60s, I guess, and so I said, okay, this guy, he's a character. He's very interesting. I didn't know who he was, but just from the looks of him, because you don't see as many men still having that kind of style, like the
Yeah.
old men. Those are more attributed to, I guess, to men from the north of Albania. So he was kind of a Northman from Albania.
The
So I
North
had to, yeah. So I had to stop him and ask him. So I went right in front of him. I kind of stepped in his way because he was really going fast, and I was in front of him. So I stepped in his way, and I was like immediately trying to get my point across. I was like, hey, um, I'm a photographer. Love your beard, because I had a beard like this back then too. I was kind of trying to compliment him. Can I take some photos of you? I wasn't explaining to him, oh, I post this on social media. I would say that later, but I had to kind of get my point across first. And he stopped. He was like, oh, what's your name? And I was, oh, my name is this. And then he said, well, what do you do with these photos? I said, oh, I just have I have an Instagram account, social media. Do you know? And he said, of course I know. I have songs on YouTube. I was like, what songs on you? You're a singer? And he sang like, La Huta. He sang like,
Wow.
yeah, he showed me like, yeah, these are my songs. And she showed me on his phone. But you know why I ask you? I ask you because I'm a famous person, and sometimes people want to take photos of me, and maybe they want to Photoshop my face with some naked woman or something like that. So that's why I'm asking you. And I was like, I never thought of that, but no worries. I'm not gonna do that. I just want to take a photo of you. I want to see, like, you have the place, you have the mustaches, you have everything. I just want to take a photo of you. And he was still kind of,
Hesitant.
not
Yeah.
hesitant. And then I said, it's fine if you don't want to take your photos, it's fine. But I'm looking like I'm staring into your eyes, and I'm saying I'm not doing anything to your photos at all. I'm just taking the photo, and I'm gonna show them as I take them. So if you want to believe me, fine. If not, I gave him my hand. I wish you well. And he said, no, you're good. You're good. Let's go. Let's take the photo. So that was
Nice.
kind of a joyful, happy moment, So I managed to convince him. And then, of course, like, as I said, the socializing part, he told me his name. He told me his YouTube, what he did, and all that stuff. So yeah, that's a joyful part.
That's a really
I
good
like that.
story. And you
I
get
like
to
that.
collect so many of these stories during your
Yes.
time on the street or speaking to different people. And I bet there's a difference in approaching people back in Albania. And I've seen you've started to do it now here in the US. And we can tell our audience, Brian has relocated with his family from Albania to the US to kind of give the US a shot. And I wanted to ask you, how has that journey been like to you? Your first winter storm in Boston, for example.
Well, my first winter, I hate the snow, first of all. So,
Me too.
yeah. I mean, I like taking some photos of it sometime, but that's it. I don't want the snow on my car. I don't want the snow on my feet and all that stuff.
No.
So, well, when I came here, we originally went to New York. So we were there for like 4 months, New York City. I was living in the Bronx with my wife, and we didn't really fit there. Maybe it was the conditions. I came in the USA on November 1st, 2023. So the winter kind of just had started and all that stuff. We were living in a basement. It was a habitable basement, so it wasn't like a squalid place or whatnot. It had like a kitchen and everything, but it was a basement. So no sunlight. That's really important for me to have sunlight inside the house. But beggars can be choosers. So we found that place. We were staying there. We gritted our teeth, and we were kind of doing okay for the first 2 to 3 months, because we were kind of like tourists. The first 2 months we didn't work, so we just went around, visited all these places in New York. And I was very excited actually to go to New York, because, as I said, growing up, all these street photographers, New York is like the holy Bible of photography, like street photography. So I was kind of very, very excited to take photos there. But as time went on, as conditions started getting harsher, for example, me and my wife, she was working during the day. I had a midday to late night shift on my job. So we were kind of not meeting each other a lot. It became very cold. We had nobody here, so we didn't have anyone. I kind of made friends at work and stuff like that, but those are just work friends. And then when it started to rain in the basement, we got floods.
Flooding? Oh.
Yeah, so like just like not like flooding through the window or crazy stuff like that, but when you woke up, you could see water was all on the tiles, And we talked to our landlord. He said, "Oh, I'm gonna do something, but in March, because I can't do now or whatnot." So we were kind of bummed about that, and I wasn't taking photos anymore because this job from 3 to 11, and when I got home, it was like 1 in the night, taking the subway, and then I had to take a bus to go back home. And then, all the crazy stuff that happens on the subways, and people kind of seemed very sad, very, very not like very depressed. And that kind of gets to you after a while. So I wasn't even feeling inspired to go out and take photos anymore, because you got to be inspired to do that. It's not a job. It's something, it's a passion, right? And if you're not good, you cannot do your passion.
That's very true.
So that was that. And so we were just thinking of moving to Astoria, Queens. We had found a place which was close to the subway and everything. We kind of liked the story. It kind of reminded us of Tirana in a way.
Can you tell us why? Because Astoria has a Balkanic character, but what reminded you of Tirana and Albania?
First of all, there were coffee shops which had chairs to sit outside. First thing.
Number one.
Number one. Then it had, I guess it had a lot of like European markets, but where you would find all kinds of stuff that you would find in Albania. There were souvlaki, places where you could eat souvlaki, or I guess you guys ate gyro, if I'm not mistaken.
Euro, but our
Euro, yeah.
zloty are different from Greek euros, I think.
Yes,
Become a
yes,
bit
yes.
different. Mhm.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, it had a kind of a nice flair to it. Kind of reminded even the roads kind of reminded me of some neighborhoods in Tirana,
Oh yeah.
like Muslim Shiri, for example.
Huh.
Like you had shops all around. The narrow road down the street, straight narrow road. So it was kind of fun. And but as we were kind of concluding the finishing like rental agreement and all. Um, I had come to Boston once for a wedding before, and then I was talking with a friend who's here, and he was saying to me, "Oh, you should come to Boston. You should come to Boston." And kind of in my mind, when you see the problem was when I first came, when we were deciding where to go, what we knew about the USA was only what we'd seen in movies or what we had kind of researched on YouTube and stuff like that. We had never been there. So when I thought of Boston, I thought of I don't know why, but I thought of a place like a desolated place with no people, no, very hard to find jobs, stuff like that. Because in my mind, New York City was the bustling town, and everything else was going to be kind of a lot like a lot of levels down
Yeah.
of that. But when I first went to Boston, I was there in February actually for a wedding, kind of a strange wedding in February, but I was there. I took a train, I went to Boston. So we went around the city, we did the wedding, and I kind of really liked it, to be
Yeah.
honest. I liked the architecture. I kind of was like European looking, um, very clean, very nice, and it left a good impression on me. So when this guy, my friend, he said, "Oh, you should come to Boston. I have a job offer for you from a friend of mine. They're looking for a marketing director."
Okay.
And so we were kind of okay. We're going to Astoria, but then I said, at least I thought, and I discussed with my wife, like, so if we go to Astoria now, we won't be moving to Boston anymore because
Decision we
the
have to
lease is going
make.
to be at least a year. So and then we're gonna settle here. So but if we move to Boston, we also found a house which would be 3 months lease. So like, hey, if we like it, we can stay. It's just 3 months. If we don't, sure, we can go back. We had like basic jobs that we could still find. So we decided to move to Boston and try it there, and then the rest is history. We stayed there. We stayed
Okay.
here.
How long have you been there now?
So since April. So now is January. Yeah, it's been like 8, 9 months, I
Yeah.
guess.
Boston
Yeah.
Pride. I'm from Boston myself. I grew up in Boston in Somerville, actually. I'm not sure what
Oh,
part
yeah.
of Boston are you from? Where are you in right now in Boston?
Now we live in Arlington, but
Okay.
my wife, she works in Somerville. We were
Yeah.
kind of trying to find a place there, but we didn't end up with anything nice. But we found a really great place here in Arlington, and we're here now.
I'm glad,
Nice.
Boston definitely has its perks and it's very different, has a different cultural vibe to it too. But there's also an Albanian community there, some of it located
Yes.
in Worcester, but some of it in Boston proper. There is the Fanodi Church, which is one of the oldest Albanian churches in Albania. I wanted to ask if you had been involved in the Albanian community there in Boston.
Yes, that's what I wanted to touch. The moment I arrived here in Boston, I don't know. This might be my impression. I might be wrong, but it seems to me like the Albanian community here in Boston is more organized than at least what I found in New York. I don't know if it's just my impression or not, but that's how it seems. Because the moment I arrived here, well, not the moment, but like a month later, after I arrived, I had uh, I had an invitation. There was a film festival that would an Albanian film festival that would take place in the Fanoli Church. So they invited me there to take photos. So I kind of said yes immediately. No payment required. I just wanted to get into the community, just meet
People.
Albanian people. And so yeah, I went there. It was a 3-day event. Took photos there. Met a lot of people. Some of those people we kind of ended up even going out later on, and so that was like my first touch with the community. After that, I met through these guys, I met other communities. Like if you know, uh, what's the name? Mas Besa is one. It's like a
Yep. Mhm.
Facebook group. Tuna de Bostonit, my wife, she's in Goza de Bostonit,
Oh, look at
which are
that.
different groups. We got our cat from there.
Oh, you did.
So
Nice.
yes,
It's an
so
Albanian cat.
It's an Albanian cat.
exactly. So yeah, I guess I'm more involved with the community here. We also have some projects hopefully coming up during the spring with some people from here, from Albanians from here, but we'll see about that when they get, finalized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, man.
So in terms of the photography, we know you do that with, a beautiful passion that you have, but what else are you working on the side? You shared with us your kind of immigrant story coming to America, which we love to hear, and we've all been there coming here. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were able to see the light at the end of the tunnel and kind of push through those hard moments because they're really,
It's right here, the light. Yeah.
it's right here. It's right here. But what are you hoping for now that you're kind of getting more established in your area and in Boston? Do you see yourself being here for the long term or maybe moving between here and Albania? Do you have any projects back home that you'd like to continue?
Yes, so definitely what I would love to happen ideally is me being like here and in Albania at like not at the same time, but sometimes here,
There's two
sometimes
of you.
there. Yeah. I would love that. I would love if I made that happen. Obviously, it all depends on us, on me and my wife. It's not something that I'm waiting for somebody to gift that thing to me. Um, what I'm hoping to accomplish here is obviously be a photographer as I was back home. Um, in Albania, you would only see those videos or photos I made with strangers on the street, but I wasn't getting paid off of those. So obviously, I was doing other stuff that I got my money from, my finances in order, so I could go out and take those photos.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm trying to do here too. So I'm a commercial photographer, meaning I do um, everything that's related for your like a business who wants to advertise their services, be it a restaurant who wants to advertise their food, their catering, their service, be it a hotel, be it a spa, be it a construction.
Weddings, things like this.
Weddings
Anything
and
service. Yeah.
yes, anything service. So that was like my professional side of photography, what I did as a living. I'm trying to get into that here. As I said, now I'm a marketing director for a solar panel company, and that is still aligned with what I do because I produce content for them, photos, videos, all that stuff. But my ultimate goal is to kind of reach and tap into the market here on that side of things, and I kind of put my first steps into it. But we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I'll continue to do as long as the weather gets better. I'll continue
Yeah.
to go out on the street and take photos of people here as I started doing. That's something I will never stop. And yeah, one other ambition that I couldn't really do in Albania is starting a YouTube channel, being a content creator on YouTube with my street photography, documenting it online, maybe even doing gear reviews. And a lot of people have made YouTube their full-time job. So that's something that I will try and do here, and
I can see you in
I'll see how
that.
it goes.
Definitely.
Yes, thank you.
Um,
I have a two-part question here. In terms of photography, what would you say to somebody who's beginning today as a photographer? What would you say to them as how would they start? How should they start? What should they do or learn right from the jump? That's
Yes.
something nobody ever taught you.
So, well, assuming they have a camera, right? They
Hmm.
already have a camera.
Yeah.
So, assuming they have a camera, first I would tell them don't undervalue your camera. Obviously, we are all going to unless you have a photographer dad or a rich upbringing and you can buy any camera you want. Obviously, we're all gonna get the scraps right from other people or from marketplace or whatever with what we can. don't undervalue your camera, because again, going with the car analogy, if you just started like if you just got your license, you're really, your reflexes aren't built yet. You don't want to go for the Lamborghini right away, even if you can, because you wouldn't know how to use it anyways. So
True.
you would get a normal car, start driving, start learning its ins and out of a car that you would
Yeah.
apply everywhere, and then you would kind of decide based on your knowledge what other kind of car you would get. So it's the same with the camera. Get the camera you have. Every camera is a good camera as long as it makes you go out and shoot, and shoot and learn everything there is to learn. You can learn the basics of photography with cameras that are 10 years old or even more. I learned the basics of photography with a camera made in the Soviet Union. All right, so if
That
I
is
did it
quite the
with
story. I feel
that,
like it just
yeah.
suits your profile so well. You must have gotten
So
camera.
there's no excuses, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
So learn your camera, learn to kind of once you have put your camera through the paces, like you went 100% with it, and now because of some technical limitations you cannot take the photos you want to take anymore, then you can decide to get a new camera if you can. By that time you should have started earning some money with photography. If you're just a hobbyist, that's another story. If you want to like become a photographer, that's main thing part two is photograph with your eyes. So what I mean by that is, even if you don't have your camera with you, you are driving, going somewhere, you're on the subway, going somewhere. Well, I guess not on the subway because everything goes by fast, but you're on the Uber or whatever, going to walking through the street. Take a look, be aware of your surrounding, take a look up, see what people are doing, observe, and kind of see a scene and kind of photograph it with your eyes, meaning study the scene with your eyes. Say to yourself, oh, that scene is beautiful, I would have loved to take a photo of that scene. Oh, but why? What's beautiful about it? Oh, maybe it's the light of the sun, like it's hitting this building here and it's reflecting right here. Oh, you see, that's a cool idea for a photo in the future. So you start of kind of develop your mind eye to see photos everywhere you go, and then all you need to do is replicate those photos. So that's a technical problem. That's not difficult. Replicate the photos is just figuring out how to put the camera, what lens you need, but being inspired and kind of seeing the photo. That's the most difficult part, and I would say a skill that a lot of people don't training your mind eye, because nowadays we're oversaturated with photos, and what we want to do is, oh, look at this cool photo this guy took. Oh, I'm going to take the same kind of photo. That's kind of imitating. You got to put your own flair to stuff, kind of doing your
Yeah,
own
you're right.
thing. So I guess those would be my two main things for a
So,
beginner.
Brian, I take a lot of pictures, but they never come out like the pictures you take, right? I'm just not a photographer yet. Maybe I need to train myself. But my question is this: how do you know it's a good picture? Like, what makes you look at a picture that you took and say, that is an expert piece of work that I just did?
Well, obviously photography has many genres. So when you say how do you know it's a good picture, let's say a portrait might have different will have different things I'm looking for than a street photography, or let's say a fashion photography, so kind of depends, I guess. Since you talked about your kind of photos, let's say portraits, right? How do you know
Sure.
it's a good photos? Yeah. So but thinking about it, there are like some components that are a necessity in all the photos. So what I mean is, first of all, is good lighting, finding a good light. Um, Good light is not just an expensive light that you find that you buy for your camera. Good light, the sun has good light if you know how to utilize it. You see a lot of wedding photos, a lot of that stuff. They're with natural light, with the light of the sun. So lighting is key, is essential. Another thing is being again, going in portraits, is composition. So how to compose a photo, a good photo. Obviously I cannot delve into each of these steps because that would just take too much time right now. But I'm just listing the key elements of a photo. So learn basic composition techniques. Like the rule of third is a pretty basic one, and we all have it in our phones. It's basically these lines that you see on the screen, when you put the lines, like the dotted
Yeah.
lines, kind of like a tic-tac-toe game. So learn the rule of thirds composition. Good lighting, meaning lighting that is always above your head, because the sun, since the moment we're born until we die, is always above our heads, So that's kind of all light is imitating the sun, the light of the sun. That's what's a good light
That's
is.
a really good
Try not to have shadows.
line.
Try not to have shadows under your eyes. Have shadows under your nose. So if you have that shadows, maybe go face the other
So
side.
my lighting right now is horrible. Like I have everything that you just said. Shadows under my eyes, my nose. I'm in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at your video and taking
you.
pointers. Sorry.
Next time I'm going to definitely take some pointers from you so we can actually look like ourselves.
You
And
see,
it's so true.
for example, rock sliding, he has a light above his head, but he's facing the opposite way. And now his face, it's in the shadow technically, but he has no shadows in his eyes, under his nose, and everything.
I just have sleeping
Those are his
marks
natural shadows.
Yeah. So composition, lighting, I guess, and basically these are like the main components of a good photo. Everything else is, then it depends on what kind of photo you do. If you're taking a portrait, self-confidence, being a good to pose is a good thing. Like it's a skill to pose. And if you're taking street photography, you cannot make rules because it's all about the moment,
They
So
is good at posing. I'm good for
yeah.
selfies. That's it.
I know. I've
It
seen her
depends on the
poses.
moment.
She's good. She's good. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got the posing down pack. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm good for the 2 foot away. Oh, I look good here. That's
It
it.
really depends on the lighting so much because as you said, Brian, on every podcast, because I'm switching up my lighting where I've moved to different spaces, the lighting is different. I look like a different person in each
Yes.
episode. I'm like, who is that
Even the
girl?
color temperature, changes the way your
So
skin looks,
for sure,
Yeah.
So
definitely.
everything, yeah.
What would you say is a dream place that you want to go shoot at, or in a dream city, in a dream country? And what is one place that you've always dreamt to go shoot photography at?
Well, one of the places, as I said, was New York. Still is. I cannot, going back to that just for a bit, I cannot fault New York for me not liking it. It was all my own things, being away from home for the first time, family and all that stuff, and all the other things I mentioned. So New York is still a great city, and I still love when I go there, like with the work or something, I still love to go out and photograph. So that's one. Another one that I would really love to photograph is India. India is very interesting.
I've been to India
Oh,
for a whole
yes?
month and Sri Lanka
Where have
as
you been?
well. I was in India in Mumbai, Delhi,
Yeah.
Chennai for a short period of time, in Goa, and definitely for photography, you would have a great time photographing
Right. There's
colors.
so many interesting things
Yeah.
happening like all around all the time,
Interesting.
Another thing that I kind of, well, I guess I could say this is more like I fantasize about it. I don't know if the time came if I would go, but I'm kind of I might go. It's war photography. War is horrible. Obviously, nobody wishes war, but if there is a war to happen, I kind of would love to document a side of
Some
that
kind of
war,
conflict of some
the
sort. So
conflict,
conflict area
yeah. But
repertoire.
but again, I fantasize about it, but I don't know if I would ever take the initiative to
Yeah,
do it. I'm being honest here. It's another thing to glorify it in your head, but we always got to remember that war is horrible.
war is horrible.
In every way you take it, it's horrible, So
There's something to
Yeah.
be said about the people that are at the front lines documenting it, especially
yes,
in recent times, like Motez Azeza comes to my mind.
yes,
In Gaza, and even continuing his photography after he left Gaza, and how important those photographers are and were to documenting what was happening, I think. So those are heroes in their own rights. They put their life in danger to be doing something heroic in those moments. So there is something noble to be said about that, because unfortunately, there are conflicts that happen. We don't want them to happen, but if they were to happen, there should be people on the ground that are able to document and do it in an honorable way. So thank you for mentioning that, Brian. I'm
Yes.
going to pass it over to Rock if you had additional questions.
Rock, you said you had a two-part question. Did you ask the second part of that?
Well, that was actually the second. That was going to be
Oh,
my
okay.
second question there, because
All right.
I wanted to see, because I know everybody always has a vision. Like me, for instance, my dream place to go to is Japan. So I wish I could
Japan
just,
too. Japan too. Sorry. Yeah. Japan. Definitely. Tokyo, Japan.
I would take
Yeah.
pictures of everything, just because I just think everything is fascinating about that place.
Yes.
So for me, that's my dream. If I could do photography, that's where I'd go for sure.
Yeah.
I'd
Well, you
love
should
it.
go there even if you don't do photography.
Oh, I
Yeah.
definitely am.
Yeah.
I definitely am for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think Brian, everything you shared is really amazing to your journey, to those that have, been in your shoes or want to be in your shoes, to know that it's a process and you have to be patient. But if you love your art, melting into it is one of the best things you can do for yourself, for your soul, and for those around you. We definitely want to see you take more pictures, whether we're in New York or Boston or maybe even DC, so we can share those stories. It's a way of creating history. One last question that I had before we log off for today is, what would you say to the younger version of Brian who had these cool ideas in his head, but he didn't know where to start, and someone he gave him like a USSR camera to start working with?
I would say, kid, take that camera with you everywhere you go, because it's gonna take you places.
There you go. I love that.
I love that too,
Wonderful.
man.
Thank you so much, Brian, for sharing.
And you know what?
Go ahead.
You know what's funny, Brian? You know what's
Yes.
crazy? My brother moved out of my house, and I have a niece who's very artistic. And she lives now, they live about 45 minutes away in the wilderness, in the wild.
In the
And I
suburbs.
said, yeah, and I said, the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to buy her a gift. And what I bought her was a camera.
Perfect.
So
That's a great gift.
I said, if I can find my niece to have a hobby, let it be something like a camera. So you never know if maybe in 20 years from now she becomes a photographer like you.
Exactly.
But I hope it happens.
You plant the seeds, man. You plant the seeds, and you
Really
never
do.
know.
Yeah, man. So
that passion might even lead her into something other than photography, but still artistic. You never know. Yeah.
Nature.
Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly.
The eye is able to see through that process too, and it makes sense that you said this camera is going to take you places, because you wanted to take photographs of those places.
Exactly.
With your camera on you.
Exactly.
Here we are.
Mind blown.
Mind blowing. Buy a camera, start traveling.
Yes.
There we go.
Correlation. Brian, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for just sharing your story again. It's going to inspire a lot of people, and we can't wait to see the new content you'll be putting up, and hopefully we'll be able to shoot some content together, who knows, in the future as well, if we're in the city. Awesome.
It will be my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
And please plug in your Instagram, plug in your YouTube, your TikTok now that it's back.
We'll include them in the episode itself as well. But again, where can people find you online?
People can find me on Instagram. It's, well, I guess I'll say Drit here, but you guys probably will write it there. And then they can find me on, hold on a second, on TikTok with the same name, so Drit here. And then my YouTube channel is, just a second, because I think it's the same, but not double checking. Yeah, it's Drit19 all together.
There we go.
You're born
YouTube.
in 1990.
Yes, exactly.
Fantastic.
Instagram and TikTok is Drit.here. On YouTube, it's Drit90 altogether.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian, for coming on, man. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you.
And Daya, I don't know if you have any last words.
No, that's it. Thank you for following us on another episode, and catch you all next time.